I read in the you said something clicked in the last 12 months. I felt as if the band had just begun. How come?
I think just making the LP that we've just made was just the most exciting creative time we've had. And I felt like we did when we started rehearsing. The first time we rehearsed in the cellar 5 years ago, and the first time we played our first gigs. I think that we've just kind of, our first LP was recorded after we'd only been together for a few months, and it's a kind of scruffy, it's charming LP, Natural History. And since then we've played a lot of gigs and spent a lot of time with each other. And I think when we came to make this record, we were able to instinctively really just to demonstrate more what we can really are capable of and how we can play together, you know, really strongly and dynamically. And so that has given us a real fresh start in a way. Yeah, feels like our first LP.
But did you already knew that feeling or had that feeling before you went into the studio, or did it click inside the studio, or were you aware that you were more tight now?
Well, the gigs that we'd just done before recording the LP, I think had been some like the best gigs we've ever done as well, the most dramatic and dynamic. And so as soon as we started rehearsing the new songs, we wanted to get in and record this really as quickly as possible. That's what we did, and we went in with a guy called Joe Robinson. So it was just there was some gigs we just done a tour before this, recording this LP, and it was just that whole period of time we really seemed to really get it together, I think.
And when you look back now and compare this album to the two previous ones, what's the first word or first emotion that comes into your mind if you have to pinpoint these three albums?
I think the first one's scruffy and charming.
You said, yeah.
The second one is quite smooth, I think. And this one is fresh and sharp. I think sharpness. It's got more angular kind of feel to it.
Okay.
We've used a lot of different instruments, but we've kept the sparsity in our sound. We haven't like layered up loads of stuff, you know. We keep a lot of space in our tunes, and but with this LP, because of a lot of the sounds we've used and the way we've played, it just seems a lot sharper.
But did you change the songwriting also, or?
Well, I think you change if you write. I've been writing songs for quite a long time, but I mean.
How long now? Since you were
12 years or so, maybe longer, since I was very small. And you do change. I don't agree with the whole idea of, oh, this is what you're supposed to do, this is who you are, this is what you're supposed to do, and that's it, you're not allowed to do anything else. Well, I mean, we're different, you know, obviously different people than who we were 5 years ago. I mean, not fundamentally, we're still the same, physically the same, but, you know. No, but it's inevitable that the writing and how we play changes as well.
Okay, and I was wondering, I also wrote down some lyrics. Let me see. I wonder, was this song about you? For maybe you wind up crazy, and when you drink, you may start drink. Then you're stupid and you're lazy. Was the song about you, or?
Yeah. I mean, the people who are in that song, have jobs that they don't want, and and it's kind of sarcastic. Obviously, they're off skipping merrily to work, and someone's got to pay for all this television, and I keep drinking, and I'm sure that I'm stupid and I'm lazy. Yeah. I just was trying to think about the lifestyle where you're just spending a lot of your life doing what you don't want to do, and then the rest of the time you're just trying to get over it by hanging around in bars, drinking, and eventually you start to get a real, you're down on yourself to the degree that you begin to believe that maybe you're useless.
Yeah, but maybe you start to believe this is the life you have to lead. So
well, yeah, but
people do.
Yeah, well, yeah, but I think this is because this is it. People can get browbeaten by things, I think mainly by jobs that they don't really want to be doing. I think there's a lot of.
Have you had that feeling sometimes?
Absolutely, yeah.
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 And even within this band, or?
No, happily not. Since we've been starting I Am Kloot, this has been the most exciting time of my whole life. This last 5 years, no, not feelings like that at all.
No,
But I mean, I think, if you've got a certain amount of experience of life, then I mean, your past is, as you know, still in your personality now. So I feel able to sing about,
the things
being disenchanted with, the idea of, having to do a job that you don't want to do, spending your life doing things you don't want to do.
Did you have a specific time in your mind when you wrote this song? I mean, looking back on how you felt, let's say, what period?
Well, no, not really.
Okay,
No,
no.
it's not that. I mean, I'm writing about. I'd like to think I'm writing about us, just people in general.
Okay.
But I'm using myself as an example rather than me actually saying. I don't necessarily think that my life is any more interesting or less interesting than anyone else's. It's just I often feel that if I feel like this, then maybe other people do too. I don't know.
Yeah, because you're just human.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
And I think it's a shared experience of people just having lives that were spending a lot of their time in their life doing stuff they'd rather not be doing.
Yeah, because it's also the song "An Ordinary Girl" that has the same sort of angle, but then written from a different point of view.
Yeah. I mean, she's slightly weird in that we think she's an ordinary girl, but I mean, really, what I'm trying to say, she's a vampire.
Yeah.
She's supernatural. So she's got this ordinary life, and she's an ordinary girl in an ordinary town in an ordinary world, but she's kind of she's created a kind of she's harnessed supernatural powers to move her life.
Okay, yeah, it's funny you say that vampires, because in the next song you even use the word vampires. Because I thought it was a nice line. We fall upon ourselves each night and crawl like vampires through the night.
From the light.
From the light. I'm sorry, from the light.
Yeah, from the light. Yeah. Yeah, well, I think that's just really about, getting involved with wanton lust, really, and just, getting off it a bit. And by the time the morning comes, you crawl like a vampire from the light. Yeah.
But do you feel sometimes, because you live this life, that you live, let's say, during the nightly hours, or?
I wouldn't say it specifically because of the lot. I mean, yeah, if you gig a lot, obviously you are spending most of the time. It is more of a nighttime existence. I don't know. I think all three of us have always been a bit like that, anyway. I mean, in Manchester, it's often very dull and gloomy, anyway. So the day.
How come? Because of the.
It's just very cloudy and rainy,
Yeah.
and so it's more of a nighttime kind of place.
Okay. I'd like to say this quote to you. Maybe you can comment. Space is power.
Yeah.
When did you find it out that it was actually the case? Because sometimes when you start out, you want to make noise. When did you find it out?
Almost instantly. The
Yeah?
first songs that we did, 86 TVs and a song called To You, all have a lot of space in them. And consequently, when we play them, I mean, especially you can tell when we do outdoor festivals, really, because people think, well, it's not forceful enough what we do for outdoor or whatever, but because you put a lot of gaps in the music, it makes it very expansive and large sounding.
But did you do it on purpose, or have you always written songs
I think we
like
did it. Yeah, No, I didn't really. I've not really been in a band before I Am Kloot, except for when I was a kid, and so I've always kind of been into not having too much going on. I mean, if the melody and the rhythm and the chords and the structure's right, you don't have to like throw everything at it like the London Philharmonic Orchestra or whatever. And I think Andy and Pete have got the same kind of instinctive feel about music in the same way. It's not less is more. I think when I say space is power, probably power is the wrong word actually, but probably wasn't being very articulate. But I meant that it's if the space that you put into music makes it larger sounding, not powerful, but larger sounding. Okay. It's got a more, And this is why I think people are surprised. I think when we play some big festivals outdoors, that how well it works, our stuff in that kind of setting, because they assume it would only work in a kind of intimate like this, like in here,
And you were saying you weren't actually in a band only when you were younger, and then you were in I Am Kloot. Was it because of you didn't find the right person to play with?
Yeah, and also it's until we got this together. I don't think my songs really had something, but they didn't turn a corner until I wrote a few just as we started I Am Kloot. In fact, I wrote them, and it was then I wrote to you and Twist and 860Vs and thought, I've really got something new here. The way the writing is, and so I've kind of forgotten the question there, but yeah. Previous to that, yeah, I was just only played on my own.
Mm.
And Pete was been in bands, and Andy was in a band called the Flunkies.
Did you, let's say, when you were saying that until you were in I Am Kloot, you didn't write, let's say, that you didn't strike the chord in the song? Was it because of the band, or?
It was both, yeah. It's both. Okay. It's all kind of tied together. Yes. The one song I had was Twist, and I had that for a couple of years, and that was and felt like that's the vein of writing I should be pursuing more.
Which was for you?
It has something spooky in it. There's kind of ghosts in the way it sounds, and also the lyrics are very they're much more punchy than stuff I'd written before, and you know, all the imagery I was using. I mean, just the idea of "there's blood in your legs, I love you." I knew instantly that people could not misinterpret, but could think, well, are automatically going to think, well, that could mean any one of a number of things. And of course, that's when I thought, yes, that's exactly what I want.
And
especially in the tone, because it is a love song, but it's a love song, but it's kind of scary, you know, scary love song.
And when you write, do you wait for the with the lyrics when you have, let's say, the feeling of the song together, music-wise, or?
No, I've been singing a lot since I was a kid. Ever since I was really small, and my parents and my sister always sang in the house. If some song comes on the radio, everyone sing at it, and so I've always sung. No, so in a lot of way, how I write is I just open my mouth and I'm singing, and I get the words and the melody more often.
So that's always, let's say, the
more
first
often
thing, the first thing that
all together, yeah,
okay.
All together, really.
Okay.
And I just keep singing, you know, and I have a Walkman, and I walk around, just keep singing. I mean, I've got versions of these songs that just last like half an hour, you know, just rattling, just singing stuff, whatever, you know. It often starts off a bit gibberish, but, you know. Words, it's weird, isn't it? Words can just come, sentences, and...
But do you always stick to the, let's say, the first line?
Usually, yeah, because because
that's the feeling you have then.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's a subconscious thing. It's not a conscious thing. It's a subconscious thing or unconscious thing. I think, you know, because I think maybe that's when you I know a lot of people who've been told, unfortunately, I think when they were younger, that people have said to them, "Oh, you can't sing," you know. Yeah. And people I know, friends of mine, who've never, you know, they'd never let you hear them sing, or just, you know, casually. And I think if you sing, you know, often, this is it. You have there's stuff that comes out of you that surprises you, you know.
Yeah, that's because your subconscious maybe that comes out.
Well, I don't know what it is, but I mean, I think it's a great thing to sing. I think, you know, just do it, you know.
My last question for you. Why does this album make you think of Richard III?
Well, I just thought that the first LP reminded me of Columbo.
Yeah.
He's scruffy Mac and he's kind of shuffly, but really he is quite clever, really. Yeah. But Richard III is just Columbo and Richard III are two characters that I've always really liked.
How come?
They're both outsiders, and with Richard III, and I love the surprise of Columbo. Obviously, I mean, obviously it's the same program every time Columbo. We know that, but you know, I just like that whole thing that happens there, and in Richard III, I just always was on his side, just, you know, which weirdly I think a lot of people are when you watch Richard III, you know, the play. You know that he's, you know, I mean, the guy's mental, he's crazy, but you're on his side, you know, somehow.
Okay.
And you know that he's doomed as well, but Anthony Sher, an actor called Anthony Sher, played him on a stage production that's wicked, where he's got a really exaggerated hunch, and he's on these metal crutches, and he's like a spider, you know, so I just felt that this LP had got more. We mentioned the vampires and monsters and gods, and obviously Richard III falls into, he's that kind of a character. So that's why.
Okay.
I find it easier to talk about music in terms of things like that than I do about it in terms of music, to be honest.
Because then you can compare.
Yeah, I can see it more. You know,
Yeah.
if you could say, "Oh, why is it? What happens in it?" It's like, I don't know. Well, it's kind of like, you know. Then the best way of describing the LP is like it's like Richard III, rather
so
than.
then now because you have certain people who think in images, or people who think in feeling, or people who think in words. But you're more, let's say, a guy who thinks in
The
pictures.
images. Yeah, I think so. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I think so. I often see the I often think about. I often kind of see the weather in songs.
The song.
Yeah, I'm kind of like, what kind of weather is it?
And do you always see the
In the
weather?
first LP, the weather kept coming up all the time. Storm warning.
Yeah.
Tides.
And so you want to capture the weather in Manchester in your.
No, I mean,
okay,
I
was joking. I was just joking.
I mean, you know, it's everyone knows about the weather in Manchester, but at the end of the day, it's quite a boring subject.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.